Good morning, students. Today we'll start with the new chapter, the second chapter, that is Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood, written by Anis Jung. Let me just give you a brief introduction to the topic of the story. Lost Spring is actually the lost childhood. And Anis Jung, the author of the stories, talks about the national shame, that is child labor, when children being forced to live a life of poverty and exploitation. The stories revolve around the pitiable conditions of poor children. It even tells you how the life of little poor children, that are the rag pickers who have migrated from Bangladesh but now are settled in the Simapuri area of Delhi. The miserable life of a bangle maker is being depicted in the second part of the story, and it talks about the miserable life of two children whose spring, that is childhood, is lost in misery and poverty. So, to start with the story, I would want you to read these expressions here, which is given in the beginning of the chapter, that is looking for, slog their daylight hours, roof over his head, perpetual state of poverty, dark huntments, and the last one is impose the baggage on the child. So I'm going to explain you this very clearly in the middle of the chapters when we'll go through the explanation. So let me start with the first part of the story, that is, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Why do you do this? I asked Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago. Set amidst the green fields of Dhaka, his home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes, his mother tells him. That's why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. So now, Anis Jung is asking the first child of the story, that is the protagonist of this particular part of the story, that is Sahib-e-Alam. So now she asks Sahib, because she sees Sahib every morning looking out for something in the garbage. You must have seen the rag pickers, how they really look out for the dumps in the garbage. So the same way, this little boy used to come here every morning, and he used to look out for something in the garbage. So she's asking a question. I mean, with all the curiosity, she's asking a question to Sahib, that why do you do this? Why do you really have to do this thing? So what he says that we look for gold in the garbage. Gold is actually here money, the source of living. So he says that we look out for some kind of a source of living in the garbage dumps. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. So when he asked, that's a kind of a flashback to the story, that where do they hail from? They come from the country called Bangladesh, because as per what the story the mother has told Sahib has been informed that their houses, their lands and their fields were swept away by a strong storm. So they had nothing left in Bangladesh. That is why they have come to this particular country, that is India, and now they are settled in city like Delhi, which is in the area of Simapuri. All the Bangladeshis are living there, and because they've got nothing left in Bangladesh, so now they are living here in Delhi. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. So he said, because that kind of a question was like very hollow for him. So he said that I've got nothing else to do, because that is the only best thing I've been taught since my childhood, to look out for garbage. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. So, what she said, that why don't you go to the school? Instead of looking out for the garbage dumps, why don't you go to school? And he said that, how hollow that advice would really sound to a child who's looking out for a garbage every morning and night. He doesn't even know what studies really hold an importance. So he said that is why it is sounding very hollow, which is like meaningless, okay? And here glibly means speaking in a confident way without careful thought or honesty, with honesty. So now moving further, there is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. So he says that now we do not have any school in the neighborhood. So how can I go to the school? We don't have any importance for the school there. You're asking me to go to school. I have been taught only to pick the garbage. So then Anis questions again, and she says that, what if I start a school? Would you come to my school? And what was the answer of that little child? He said, yes, I will be. Yes, he said, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant, but promises like mine abound in every corner of this bleak world. So, now after some times, what really happened, Sahib was like really very confident that this lady who's asking me to build a school, maybe she must have built a school. So he comes and approaches again Anis Jung, and he asks that, have you built up your school? So then what? And she felt really embarrassed that she had made a promise which was just as hollow as it could be, and it was actually not meant to be fulfilled. So after months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. He does not even know what it means. So definitely, see, such an irony here. The name says Sahib-e-Alam, which is the Lord of the universe, and imagine the kind of a poverty that he is living into. So after a few months, Anis asked the question that, what is your name? So she got to know the name of the little child that she was encountering every day and night. So that was Sahib-e-Alam, which is the Lord of the universe. He would have a hard time believing it, unaware of what his name represents. He roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. So now it was like a group of boys who were together, but he was the main one whom she used to interact with. So now she says the entire squad of the boys as the army of a barefoot boys, because they did not have any, because they were really poor, poverty stricken. So they all did not have anything to wear for in their foot. So now by the end of the months, for few months, after few months, the author was recognizing each one of them now. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answers simply. So see, now you see how nicely they were giving the answers. So she asked one of those one of those boys of the squad, that why don't you wear chappals? So what was the answer given by that boy? That my mother does not bring them down from the shelf because it is kept so far from me that I cannot go and lift up and wear the chappals. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I've seen children walking barefoot. In cities, on village roads, it is not lack of money, but the tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. So now you see, this is the chapter which all of you must have seen in your real lives also. You must have seen the little children who are really begging for the food and money around the corners of the street also. So it is really nothing to be explained as such, but if you can understand very well, this is like every day we see. So exactly the same way, when they were actually the squad, so one of them says that I want to own the chappal, the other one has another excuse to not wearing the chappals, the other one wants to own a pair of shoes, wherein if they have been given also the pair of shoes, still they would like to move barefoot. So it is a kind of an excuse, an explanation to each of the questions that was being asked by Anis Jung. So I wonder, moving further, If this is only an excuse to explain a perpetual state of poverty. I remember a story of a man from Udupi once told me. So now you see that it's a kind of just an excuse which all these children were giving to Anis Jung, that why don't they want to wear the chappals, or probably if they get also one of them want to wear the shoe but they still don't get the shoe. So it's a kind of an explanation which they have been giving to Anis Jung. So now moving further, it says that I remember a story of a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest. There were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on the folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose the son of the priest. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, remained shoeless. So she's just thinking of how really these small children who are like always complaining about of not wearing the shoes. So now she remembers of a story of a man from Udupi. That man was actually the priest of a temple, and his son could not afford the shoes. But later, after 30 years, she could see that the priest's son has grown little older, and he had a son. So now his son could afford the shoes. So she was like just imagining the kind of a trauma these children, the small poor children, are going through, because when they really want to own something and they really cannot. So she was saying the goddess there at the priest temple had actually fulfilled the wish of that little boy who was really looking out for the shoes. But when she looks on to the children of the neighborhood who always remain shoeless, so she feels really bad of such a situation. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metamorphically. So definitely, if I talk about the place like Delhi, Delhi is a place where you cannot imagine the poverty being risen at such a level. But practically, if we see that Simapuri is one of those places in Delhi where only poverty is risen. So now those who live here are the squatters who come from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahib's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty. In structures of mud and roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. So Simapuri was just a wilderness, but then now people have really migrated in a good number from Bangladesh in 1971, and now they have like only settled in that particular place, in that muddy area where approximately 10,000 rag pickers are living and surviving. They've lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that they get their names on voter list. See, again, this tells you the cruel society, the cruel politician society, that how they have got no identities, but still they've got the ration cards so that they could add their names on the voter list, because the politicians want their votes. So now, even they've got their names on ration cards so that they could actually buy the grains. Food is more important for survival than an identity. Definitely, for such people who are just living and surviving, they say that food is more important than an identity. We don't need an identity, but we need food. And to buy food, we have got our names on ration cards, and so we can easily buy our grains. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that give us no grains, says a group of women in tattered saris when I asked them when they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. So now she's actually going in that particular place and she's visiting people, and she asks, so even each one of them, because nobody wants to live a life of miserable willingly. It is the kind of destiny, it's their fate, and moreover the circumstances that have led them to live such a poor life. So she's one of the women of these of the group that she actually met with. Now that woman says that it is like it is really good. The Simapuri place is really good because at least gives us something to eat. And even back home, if we look about Bangladesh, we have got nothing to eat. So this place is better than the place that we hail from. So now children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. So basically, what does it mean that children grow up and become partners in survival? Because they have got nothing else apart from Simapuri to look forward to. It is the only basti or a slum area that I can really say, which is like only focusing towards each one of them in the community. They've got nothing else to really look forward to. Through the years, it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. So garbage is because a source of earning money. So it is a source of earning their livelihood. That is why it is considered to be as a gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child, it is even more. Definitely for children, for small little children who go for rag picking, it is something more into the garbage. Okay. So now it is written, for a child who is scrounging for something into the garbage, it is more than a goal to them. Moving further. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in the heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is a hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has meaning different from what it means for their parents. Definitely, for small little children, it is just founding the money, the source of income which they could actually go and buy their grains from. So, he says that at times even I find a 10 rupee note. So imagine what a plight they would be really living in. So a 10 rupee note could be a real source of income for small little boys like Sahib Alam. And when he says a 10 rupee note, his eyes are being lit up as in with the spark in the eyes that yes, sometimes I find more than a rupee, sometimes I find more than 1 rupee and I get a 10 rupee note. So garbage has something really different meaning to these children than to their parents, because for the parents, it is a means of survival. For children, it is just a kind of a gift wrapped in wonder. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is means of survival. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching 2 young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums. Content to watch it, standing behind the fence, I go inside when no one is around. He admits the gatekeeper lets me use the swing. See, now Sahib talks about, he says that it is every child in this world would be born with some desires and some wishes. So it is not like that poors are not born with any kind of wishes or desires. Even this child, he likes the game of tennis. So he's like standing outside the tennis club and he keeps on watching the game. So he even says that to Anis, that I even go inside the tennis club because the gatekeeper knows me and he even lets me go in at the time when there is nobody. So see, he tries to take the feel of the tennis court, but then he cannot play. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that looks very strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. So it is not hidden from us. Definitely, when we do not need any, whenever we discard any of our clothes or shoes, we tend to give it to our maid children's, or probably to our maids. So exactly the same, the shoes that he was wearing, the tennis shoes, definitely it did not belong to him, but somehow it belonged to him, because they were the discarded ones and it was given to him. So he gave an explanation that it is somebody gave it to me. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. That hole which bothers the real rich boy, but that hole does not bother Sahib-e-Alam. For one, because they are always like barefoot, and it is always good to wear something than to be a barefoot child. So for one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. Definitely, he can actually afford to wear the shoes, maybe because they are being given to him by someone. But if I talk about the game, definitely it is way beyond his imagination. He cannot play that game inside. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. So now, the story has a different turn and a twist, and he says that I am no longer working for the garbage thing. I am now working for a tea stall. And what is my salary? My salary is 800 rupees, and I get all my meals also paid. So does he like the job? That is the question she's asking herself. I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. Because when you work as a child labor under somebody, so your carefree look definitely vanishes from your face. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. So there'll be a definite question from the last line of the last paragraph here. Sahib is no longer his own master. And I would like you to underline this part, because it may come as a question. Why is Sahib no longer his own master? Because now he is not working for himself. He doesn't have that carefree look. He is now a bonded labor who has lost that carefree look, and now that small little canister of chai, that tea, that tea seems to be heavier than the bag, the plastic bag that he used to carry on his shoulder. So now he's no longer his own master, and he has come under the national shame, that is the child labor. So this is the first part of the story. The second part is I want to drive a car. I'll explain it in the other part. So till now you just go through it, and thank you.